This is the recap on a second class of landscape painting, outdoor painting, and I want to go over a couple things that we talked about during class. We started with the three value study idea. I demonstrated mixing one color with watercolor and the amount of mileage you can get out of just taking some time getting to know a tube of paint and your piece of paper. And I want to go over that a little bit, the idea of drawing with a brush. We talked about being in nature and the idea of indulgence and giving ourselves the time to experience small shifts in color. We talked about this idea of self-trust and all the voices that are in our minds when we go to make a picture and self-judgment and how to deal with that. Some simple techniques or metaphors for approaching that. And there's several students that really want to expand their idea of color with respect to representation and coming from several years of experience of approaching representation in a more tonal manner than giving color perhaps the life that it can have. So I want to keep talking about that throughout the class, and I'm gonna mention a couple artists that will help as make a roadmap for everybody. And then we talked about Leon Kossoff. He was my artist of the week, and his approach to the model in terms of representing the paintings of Poussin from the 1600s. And within that, we started to talk a little bit about the picture plane and what it means to look at a painting hanging on a wall and how we are positioned, to the degree to which our feet are planted when we experience some mode of representing space with a picture. So to start off, I want to look at some beautiful color. So this is a Bonnard painting, and he is a wonderful person to have in mind if you are thinking about representation and color and allowing color to breathe and sing and be a formal quality. And I suggest that one of the solutions to wanting to grow in a particular direction is simply to have maybe a postcard or a picture, a printout of some artist that inspires you in a direction that you want to get towards, but haven't figured out a way to intuitively approach a specific goal. Then if you have a card, a postcard like this, or an image, you can keep it in your paint box or keep it in your kitchen for when you're doing dishes, and it will absorb perhaps over time into your process. There's like an absorbative quality to color, and I think in terms of being inspired by artists, it can be similar. And the artwork can just kind of start to get into your work without you trying that hard, maybe. This is another Bonnard painting. We have here him pushing the oranges and the purples and the oranges and these kind of opposite elements of the color wheel of similar intensities and values and really kind of deconstructing and constructing our visual experience at the same time with color. These are more landscape paintings of his they really just have surprising, beautiful, splendid moments where these dark blues get to be both a color and a rich dark of the trees. And then another great reference point it would be Richard Diebenkorn. And in general, the Bay Area school, since we're in California, I think uh, being mindful of some of the tradition here, Richard Diebenkorn, Wayne Thiebaud, um, and uh, and other artists from that school. These are Richard Diebenkorn's later works, his abstract works. And this is kind of a gouache, watercolor, water-based medium. Maybe there's some acrylic. Some of them are on paper, some of them are on mylar. And then these are his landscape paintings. And so I'm showing him because he has certain periods in his output that kind of show a stretch from a more tonal representation to a more color feeling. He's also just a great person to look at if you're trying to think about what abstraction might mean to you and you've been painting representational landscapes. again, you can always pause this slideshow. There's a lot of images I'm going to show, and it's really just food for thought for us to be inspired. But here he is breaking up the landscape, and you can't tell what came first, really. Was he inspired by the shape of the painting, the shape of this color brick, or did he see an ocean first? It's hard. There's like a wonderful play between what he was inspired by and what he made that then inspired him to continue being inspired by, right? Like some kind of somersault of influence and influence and inspiration. He's also I had several conversations about looking from above, and he had the opportunity where he worked in an airplane for a period of years, and so there's this idea in Western painting that painting went from window space, that maybe there was this trajectory uh, from older painting to modern painting, that the picture plane was flattened over time, and so as you look from an aerial view, you might get the sense of this flatness. So it's an interesting take on that narrative of abstraction and representation, looking at Richard Diebenkorn. And then I want to go over the ink washes. So Tiepolo was my motivation, was my introduction to how much mileage we can get out of simply three values and ink. And so we did washes was my idea. We used Prussian blue, and I thought of it just as, let's say you got a new tube of paint, you don't really know how it's going to react. So what if you got a new Prussian blue and it's Winsor Newton, and you used to use a different brand? And so why not just make some color studies of trying to find three different values of that paint and how it reacts to your particular paper, and just really indulge in the time you've given yourself to simply pay attention to the luminosity of this medium and how it's reacting with the light of where you are outside, and just give it time and energy to and respect that we have this time in nature to be outside and watch colors. So for example, in Tiepolo, we have the white of the page, and that's considered one value, and then you have a lighter value here, and then there is some mixing. It's not like exactly three values, but you have kind of a middle light and dark scenario. And then the darks, for example, here, so this could be your light, your middle, your dark, and then you could conceive of these as accents of further in the dark range. And then something that came up with students was, I have two things, a tree next to a swath of grass or a patch of grass where the value is the same, and it's kind of not discernible, the difference. And one way of dealing with that is with line, right? And the line becomes a poetic moment. So here you have a line that is a value, right? We have this exchange of from dark to light of lines that's separating two values that are apparently similar and giving a certain amount of dynamism to it. So I'm just going to show a bunch of images of how we can push and pull on values and line and kind of the art and poetry of that. Like we just look at the simplicity and clarity of a head like this in this Tiepolo, and the shapes that were arrived at are incredibly surprising, right? The fact that the color of this hair is the same as the color on this face, and the color on this forehead is the same as the color on this cheek, and that this head is coming out of this magical play of lights and darks with lines to kind of break the space, but also add a lyricism. The lines also seem I don't know if helter skelter is the word, but they seem to evoke the process of finding through drawing, which we don't want to lose, right? This is another series of these characters. But it's simply worth it to pay attention to how there was a student that did something very similar to this with broken lines of a dark value to help describe a form, but kept air in the form between the background and the foreground. So this is a solution to dealing with the complexity of the landscape. And then we come to Poussin, and these paintings are miraculous in of themselves, but I bring him as part of introducing Leon Kossoff. So these are from the 1600s, these Poussin paintings, these landscape paintings that they're kind of like Jacob Ruysdael's paintings in terms of the landscape, where they seem to move the longer you look at them. They have a really magical quality to them. And I'm bringing him to bear based on Kossoff's appreciation of him. So Leon Kossoff is this British painter from the 1990s. These are from the 1990s or early 2000s, and these are his renditions, representations, concoctions, um, reverberations, appreciations of Poussin. Right? They're his copies. They're this idea of what do we gain, or what do we learn about the thing that we're representing. So I really want to drive that home a little bit. Is we're in the landscape. What are we getting from it? And so this is what he's pulling from himself and his experience of what he is looking at. So these are his representation. This is his print of this painting by Poussin. So we can see how he dealt with the crook in this knee, and this figure standing looking at a mirror reflection of somebody else, right? This incredible motif, first of all, this narrative. But he doesn't lose the thing about looking at Kossoff is it allows us to see someone holding on to an emotive quality, perhaps, or like his sense of what he's experiencing as form. These are his renditions of a Rembrandt painting. And this is actually a Poussin drawing. So this is a drawing from the 1600s, and we're seeing Poussin's understanding of his painting as this series of darks, as this kind of puzzle and play of darks sweeping across this kind of horizontal arcade. And then this is Leon Kossoff's drawing of a Poussin painting, and kind of him dealing with this web of characters struggling in this narrative. This is another Leon Kossoff drawing of that painting. So here we have on the left we have the Kossoff drawing, on the right we have the Poussin drawing, and both dealing with these paintings of Poussin's. So I just want us to keep in mind like what we are getting from the landscape as we draw from it, and what is a copy. And then I bring us back. So to kind of pull everything together, the idea of being above the painting is kind of a fun idea. This is kind of like an extra philosophical thing to talk about. But here we have a slightly tilted table in some respects, or at least we have a play with what it means for something to be flat versus in perspective versus behind a thing. And again, like I was saying about Diebenkorn, is his idea of abstraction perhaps has something to do with an aerial view. And when I was talking about the idea of where we are positioned when we look at a painting, this is a similar idea. So where are we in respect to this Poussin painting? There's this giant hole in front of us in a way. So we appear to be floating in space as we experience this this menagerie, and that comes up a lot in painting. So this is an Egyptian painting from the 1300s, and we get this kind of in plan view of that then is flipped again to be profile of this kind of pond cultivation scenario. And I just think this is a really beautiful solution to what it means to look at a representation of a thing in space. So we have these trees that seem to set up a system that they're going to be around this lake, but then it flips to be vertical again. So you can start to look at painting as simply solutions to representing space in this way. And these are more Egyptian paintings from the 1300s that really I'm just showing because they're beautiful things to experience. So yeah, that's everything that I wanted to go over.